Hi there, Phineas MacGuire Erupts, chapters 5 and 6. This morning, after I'd watched Saturday cartoons, I sat at the kitchen table and brainstormed some alternate science fair project ideas. Here's what I came up with. Number 1. When you drink milk and start laughing, why does the milk automatically squirt out of your nose? Does only milk from a little carton do this? How about milk from a glass? From a plastic cup? If you were drinking a juice box, would stuff still come out of your nose, or does juice automatically go straight to your stomach? Number 2, why do rotten eggs stink? How long does it take an egg to get rotten? What would happen if I put an egg under my bed with all the unwashed socks and underpants and empty potato chip bags and banana peels and all the black and pink jelly beans from every Easter basket I've ever had? Would the egg turn rotten faster than if it were stashed away somewhere clean? Here's a picture. And one more. Number 3, what makes mold? What stuff gets the moldiest? Why is the cheddar cheese in our refrigerator always moldy? The more I thought about number 3, the mold idea, the more interested I got. And then I had an amazing scientific breakthrough. What if I brought our refrigerator to school for my science project? Our refrigerator is practically a museum of mold. We should ship it off to a science lab where they're trying to come up with cures for diseases. Penicillin is made from mold. Who knows what they might discover after studying our fridge for a few weeks. Here's what happens. My mom does the grocery shopping on Saturdays. She brings home about 10 bags of very healthy food and about 2 bags of stuff my family will actually eat. The healthy food gets pushed to the back of the refrigerator or stuffed into the produce drawers. Every week my mom piles on a new layer of healthy food. This goes on for 3 or 4 weeks until there is no more room in the refrigerator and something starts to stink really bad. Then it's time to clear out the fridge and start over. This is the best time to look for mold. You should start in the dairy drawer. Our cheese gets moldy the fastest. There are probably 4 or 5 plastic wrapped chunks of moldy cheddar cheese in our refrigerator anytime you open the door. And it's amazing how much mold will grow on feta cheese that comes in a container. It's also amazing how much feta cheese stinks even before it gets old and moldy. I won't even discuss the cottage cheese situation. Next, you should look at all the open cans on the top shelf. There's a very interesting black mold that grows into tomato paste, for example. Don't forget to look at any open cans of soup. Soup grows mold that looks like little stars. I was taking mold notes in my scientific journal or my science journal like crazy, and then I thought, Big Mac double attack. Magnets on the outside, mold on the inside. I would take down all the junk our fridge magnets were holding up, mostly notices for PTA meetings from last year. And once I got everything down, I could put up interesting information about magnets. I would use magnets to hold up all this interesting information, of course. I wasn't quite sure how I would convince my mom and stepdad to let me take the refrigerator to school. Well, I knew I couldn't convince my mom, but sometimes my stepdad could be reasoned with. First, though, I would have to reason with MacGuire. I was supposed to go to MacGuire's house at 4. Actually, it wasn't a house, it was an apartment 3 streets away. Marcus's house had been 3 streets away in the other direction. On Saturday mornings, I would ride my bike, to his house, or he would ride his bike to mine, and we would watch cartoons and make plans for new volcanoes and other interesting scientific investigations. I started getting that sad feeling again, thinking about Marcus. I was getting a little tired of that feeling, if you want to know the truth. So instead of sitting around thinking about how bad it was not to have a best friend, I hopped on my bike and rode to MacGuire's place. I would share my great scientific ideas with him. I could bring him back to my house and show him all our refrigerated mold. Maybe I could convince him that mold was about 1 trillion times more interesting than dinosaurs and volcanoes. Just thinking about mold made the sad feelings go away. If you need cheering up, a little mold will do the trick. When you're riding your bike really fast, your brain starts going pretty fast too. From the time I left my house until the time I got to MacGuire's apartment, about 1,000 ideas went through my head. More and more of these ideas started being about how much I didn't want to do my first really important science project on little kid things. I was supposed to be a scientist, not a kindergarten teacher. My job wasn't to do something just because MacGuire wanted to do it. I was in the business of making scientific breakthroughs. Dinosaurs and volcanoes were not in the scientific breakthrough department. By the time I got to MacGuire's apartment, I pretty much wanted to punch him in the mouth. "What are you doing here?" he asked when he opened the door. He was wearing Spider-Man pajamas, and his hair was sticking out even worse than usual. He looked like he was a very tall 2-year-old, and if you want to know the truth, one word, I told him, holding up a finger, which I thought about poking him in the chest with, just to let him know I meant business. I probably would have if he hadn't looked like such a preschooler. T-Rex? Officially speaking, T-Rex would be 2 words, I said, looking past him into the apartment. I saw he had cartoons on the TV and not the public television cartoons, which were the only ones my mom let me watch at home. "Can I come in, by the way?" MacGuire looked nervous. "I'm not supposed to have anyone over when my mom's at work. That's why I told you to come at 4. That's when she gets off." "Where does she work?" I asked. "She's the manager of the apartment complex," MacGuire said. He poked his head out the doorway and looked left and right. "I guess you could come in for a few minutes, but if my mom calls, don't answer the phone." Scientifically speaking, I was starting to think it was highly unlikely MacGuire was the smartest 4th grader at Woodbrook Elementary. I mean, really highly unlikely. Chapter 6. Mold? "You want to do a science project about mold?" MacGuire fell back against the couch. He looked a little green. "Yes," I told him, "mold is very scientific, and it's everywhere, in my refrigerator, under the wall-to-wall carpet, and blowing around in the air. You've heard of mold spores, right?" MacGuire looked even greener. "I thought we were going, to do a volcano." "Oh, I remember you said something about volcanoes the other day, but this mold idea came to me from out of nowhere. I think we could win first place with it. It's a much better idea than a volcano." Here's another picture. I forgot to show you the one before that, too. This is when he arrives at MacGuire's house. "Do you really think your mom will let you take your refrigerator to school?" MacGuire asked. Let's see. I shrugged. "I think my stepdad could talk her into it if he felt like it. He does this thing where he tickles her and says funny stuff, and after about 5 minutes of that, she usually gives in." MacGuire stared at the TV. It didn't look like he was watching it, though. "My dad's still in Seattle," he said. "We moved here after my parents got divorced." Now it was my turn to stare at the TV. It's hard to know what to say when people tell you terrible stuff about their lives. I probably should have said something like maybe one day we would end up with a nice stepdad like I did, which doesn't automatically make your parents getting a divorce okay, but it does make the day-to-day stuff a little better. I didn't say that, though. I can never think of the right thing until about 4 hours later. MacGuire turned and looked at me. The thing is, I was already sort of working on the volcano plan. "Do you want to see what I've done so far?" "Not really," I felt like saying, since I'd already decided a volcano was a dumb idea. But you can't be rude 2 seconds after someone tells you the worst thing in his life, so I followed Mac down the hallway and into the bedroom at the very end. He flipped on the overhead light. "This is my room," he said. "I'm supposed to clean it before I watch any TV, but I haven't gotten around to it yet." Okay, and this is a picture. There's lots of pictures in this book. MacGuire's room looked like it had been picked up, turned upside down, and shaken all around until it rattled. I was impressed. He started tossing things all over the place. "Okay, now let me just find that notebook," he muttered. "It's here somewhere. Maybe it's under the bed. No, here it is. Okie dokie, artichokes, take a look at this." He handed me a sketchbook opened to a picture of a volcano. "Did you draw this?" I asked. MacGuire nodded. It was the best drawing of a volcano I'd ever seen in my life. Every single detail looked exactly real. I shook my head. "You're an artist. You're probably the best artist of the 4th grade. "I'm not an artist," he said. "Boys can't be artists. I just like to draw." "What do you mean boys can't be artists?" MacR took the notebook sack from me and closed it. My dad says boys can be architects. They can go into graphic design or they can be advertising art directors, but they can't be artists because art is for girls. No offense, I said, but your dad's wrong. My Uncle Conrad is an artist. He draws comic books. Okay, let me show you the picture that he drew of the volcano. And then here's a picture of the comic books. He draws comic books. He did paintings of me and my sister that look exactly like us. He's an amazing artist. MacR's eyes lit up. He draws comic books because that's what I want to do. He got down on his hands and knees and pulled a box from under his bed. It had about 2 million sketch pads in it. I'm working on a comic book now. As a matter of fact, he said, handing me one of the sketch pads. It's called Derek the Destroyer. It's about a guy who flies around at night stopping crimes and destroying evil stuff. I looked at a couple of pages. MacR was not only an excellent drawer of volcanoes, he could also draw comics. I'm not a big comic book reader, even though my Uncle Conrad is always trying to get me interested in them. But I could tell MacR's were good. I noticed something at the end of one of the stories. It was a little signature in the corner of the last box. Who's Ben? I asked. MacR turned red. That's me. Is that your comic book artist name? No, he said, that's my real name. Mac is my middle name. He picked up a robot action guy that was on his bed and twisted its arms into different positions. Well, actually, Peter is my middle name. Nobody calls me Mac except for people at school. I sat down on the bed. Why? I mean, our class already had a Mac. It's not like we need another one. MacR had gone back to his normal color for a few seconds, but now he was redder than ever. It's stupid. I don't even know why. There must be some kind of reason. I just like the name Mac, okay? You don't own it, you know. It's not your real name either. You're really Atticus or Maximus or something. Phineas, I said. I'm named after my great-great-uncle. He was an inventor and played baseball for the Cleveland Indians, single A team, and one time he went over Niagara Falls in a barrel. What did he invent? This kind of gum that has cloves. Had cloves in it for people with toothaches, I said, and some other stuff too, but the gum was his most famous thing. MacR grabbed his comic book back. Gum's stupid. So telling everybody your name is Mac when it's not really your name, that's about the stupidest thing I can think of. I know it's stupid. MacR stood up and glared at me. Don't you think I know it's stupid? You're the one that's stupid if you don't think I know it's stupid to tell people that your name is Mac, just so you'll have one stupid thing in common with somebody in your class. I was thinking it was possible that MacR was the most confusing person I'd ever met in my whole life. But I decided not to say this. I thought maybe it was time to not have this conversation anymore. Maybe we could start a conversation that didn't have so much yelling in it. I said, so should I start calling you Ben? I mean, it's a good name and everything. All of a sudden, MacR looked tired, like he'd just run 100 miles. Yeah, he said, sitting back down on the bed. It's starting to feel really weird that nobody in this school calls me Ben. I looked some more at MacR's, Ben's, comics. He was a genius, that was for sure. Just not a school kind of genius. Do you want to do pictures of volcanoes for our project? I asked him. No, these are just design ideas. I was thinking we could get some plaster and some Sculpey clay. It would be pretty easy to build a model. We could put some drawings on a board too, maybe to show the inside of the volcano, stuff like that. I nodded. This was actually a good plan. It was sort of getting me interested in volcanoes again. I could make some posters that explained how volcanoes worked and told some facts about the really famous volcanoes like Mount St. Helens and the volcanoes in the Ring of Fire. Do you know how to make a volcano erupt? I asked MacR. Ben? He shook his head no. Then, I'll be in charge of that, I told him. It's too bad we can't build a real volcano like a miniature one, but the lava's around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or something. It's just this big mass of molten rock charged with gas, and it breaks through the Earth's crust, which is totally hard to do. Lava is like the Superman of nature, if you know what I mean. MacR/Ben nodded again, like he knew exactly what I meant, And then he put up his right hand and we slapped high fives. The word boogers never even crossed my mind. End of chapter 6.